Our next guest is a Grammy and Tony-nominated singer and actor. Please welcome Josh Groban.
22 million records sold.
La 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 la. Gayle King, one of my dear friends, she is the reason why I was on Oprah the first time. Somehow I'm in a job that requires extroverted energy, and I could not be more of an introvert at heart. This was the antithesis of all the pay-for-play, radio strategy. This was just people were calling in crying. And the programmers were like, well, we should play it again. And now we should play it again. And then they would add it to their rotation.
Welcome to my podcast, Songs You Know. And today I have an incredible, very, very special guest. You might know him, Josh Groban.
Toby, it's my pleasure to be here in a room that is very special for me. We've made a lot of music and magic in this room.
We have, yeah.
This is the first time we've actually spent talking in this room.
Usually
you
come not to write, not to sing, but to actually just explain a few things. And I'm so excited to... I mean, some of your songs are iconic. Like You Raise Me Up is a song that just moves me so much.
Sure, same.
I just want to quickly run down the stats so everyone knows what an amazing person sits here with me. So, American singer, songwriter, and actor with an acting career as impressive as a singing career. Household name, owns his own genre, I would say. I don't know who else is in your genre. That's, for me personally, the most impressive, that you cover this genre that I wouldn't know who else is in this. This is incredible.
I'm inspired by a lot of other artists and singers, and I think there are kind of probably a handful of us that are also inspired by traditional styles of music and try to infuse that into more popular music as well.
So one of a handful, but let me go on.
Sure.
So 2007 best-selling artist in the US, 22 million records sold, first 4 solo albums, multi-platinum, and 6 times on Oprah Winfrey. Is that correct?
That's the most important one.
That's incredible. 6 times on Oprah Winfrey. Oh my God.
You get an album. You get an album. Yeah.
That's insane. She probably adopted you by now.
Well, the crazy thing about that is that, Gayle King, who is one of my dear friends and Oprah's best friend,
yes.
She is the reason why I was on Oprah the first time. I had just come out with the first album. That's it. We are going to start. Oprah didn't know who I was, and a lot of people didn't know who I was, but Gayle kind of knew my songs and knew my first album. She'd become a kind of a super fan, and she said, Oprah, you got to have this kid on. Yeah. And so that was...
How young were you the first time you went to Oprah?
First album, I was probably 19, 20, and that was a huge thing. And then Oprah... got a great response from it, and she kept having me on for things. And, there were those people early on that really helped me develop a fan base, because like you said in your lovely introduction, there wasn't really a playbook for us. There was no genre that I was supposed to be in. We knew that there wasn't, the potential to be on like MTV and all the things that were really huge back then. Yeah.
And I think David Foster fought for you to say, listen to this kid. It may not fit here or here or here or anywhere, but it's incredible.
There was some old-fashioned, old-school, like record label A&R. This kid, we believe in him and we don't know where he fits, but let's find a way to get his voice out there. Yeah. Things have become so much more immediate since then that I'm not sure the same thing would happen today. But back then...
Oh, with your talent, it would.
I don't know. Yeah. I meet a lot of really talented, way more talented than me. I meet people that...
You're too humble.
You go to Nashville and you walk into any bar on Broadway and you see people singing and playing where I just go like, you're one song away from being a superstar. Like you're that one song away from, and a little bit of marketing and a little bit of push and a little bit of money. And you could like, a lot of things have to line up.
Here's my Josh Groban award, and you get a sticker for best upcoming artist.
Yeah, that'll go down great. I'm going to walk around and give stickers to people.
I just saw The Wild Robot giving everyone a sticker. Did you see that movie?
No.
Oh, it's so funny.
I got to see that, but I love stickers.
Yeah.
So I'm always happy to hand out a sticker.
Do you have a Josh Groban sticker?
I don't, but I think that after this podcast,
okay, I would put it on somewhere here.
Thank you. I'm going to stick them all over the studio. I'm going to hide them, so next time you write with people, you're going to find little JG stickers everywhere.
So I want to know the story of You Raise Me Up. How did like from when you first did you write the song?
I did not write the song.
Who wrote it?
It was Brendan Graham and Ralph Loveland wrote that song, and it was originally recorded by a band artist called Secret Garden.
Oh, it was recorded before?
It was, once. So since then, of course, it's been covered a million times. It's become like a modern
Has it
classic.
been released too before?
It was, yeah.
Wow.
So
I applaud any record company who releases a song that has been released before, because that's always the stigma. Like, Don't hold it back until you have your big artist covering it.
Absolutely. So, but we didn't know it was going to be the big song. So, I was in Dublin, Ireland. Secret Garden was an Irish, artist, and and I heard that song in the back of a taxi cab in London while I was promoting my first album.
Yeah,
and just thought this is just one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. I was just like, I was kind of buzzed from like a few Guinnesses out with the record label.
Was it very different from how you interpreted?
Yes, David Foster, I would say, the Secret Garden version is beautiful. It's much more subtle, I would say. It's much more kind of hymnal. And David did his David thing to it. He really made it the kind of power anthem that it is. And he added the choir. He added that giant, boom, key change
Gets
that he does.
Massive in the end.
I would say that as amazing as the Secret Garden version was, David was the one who kind of crafted the template that became the cover for everyone else. Yeah. And so we were recording my second album, Closer, and a publisher came in and said, "Hey, I've got this song. It's out of Ireland. I thought it would be nice for Josh." I'm like, that's my taxi cab song. I remember that song. We stopped what we were doing. We recorded it. We knew it was a beautiful song, but me and radio, you never know. And there was no drive at that point to find like a top 40 single or anything like that. And so it wasn't the immediate choice by anybody. We had a lot of songs that were poppier and things like that. But, we had a great team at the label, and they said, we want to give this song a shot. And then I owe it to some amazing radio programmers who just did like one-time plays of it, because I'd come in and they'd say, oh, while we're here, we're going to play your song. Yeah. And expecting it would be a one-time play.
And then they were in tears and they said, I want to cry again to this. Yeah.
People were calling in. I'm pulling over on the side of the road and bawling my eyes out. I think about my friend, my parent, my teacher. I think about, and so the response to it was so organic. This was, the antithesis of all the kind of like pay for play, radio strategy, and you got to hit this and that. This was just people were calling in crying.
Incredible.
And the programmers were like, well, we should play it again. And then we should play it again. And then they would add it to their rotation. And that just happened all across the country. And it was a really cool thing to hear.
Incredible. And do you have some memories of like the best performances or the most memorable performances where you played the song, sang the song?
The most poignant for me was at the Super Bowl in I forgot what year it was. I'm really bad with dates, but I did the Super Bowl. I think it was like in 2005, 2004 maybe, and 2005 maybe, and they were doing a tribute to the astronauts that passed away in the Columbia disaster, and they had a really lovely large choir behind me, and they asked me to sing that song before the game, and that was probably like one of the largest stages I got to sing that song, and it was great. But when you have a song that's been that powerful in people's lives, and that has been part of everybody's soundtrack, you're always amazed at where you get to sing it and where you get to travel around, and whether it's at the White House or in Hyde Park or there's just, it never gets old when you have a song like that connects with people on that level.
How did you meet David Foster?
I met David Foster through a voice teacher I was working with in LA. I'm an LA kid. I grew up in LA. My parents are not showbiz parents. My mom's an art teacher. My dad's in executive recruiting, if you know what that is. And I was a Boy Scout. And as part of the Boy Scouts, I got asked to go to the house of a friend of mine who was also a Boy Scout, who was giving voice lessons to some of the scouts. His name was Seth Riggs, big famous voice teacher in LA. And he was like, "Oh, you got a really lovely voice." And at some point, he says, "You're a neighborhood kid. I'll give you a discount. Come over every couple of weeks, and I'll give you a discount." And he was really kind to give me discounts. David Foster called him at one point and said, "I'm in a real jam. I'm doing a concert for the new governor of California." And Michael Crawford from Phantom of the Opera had just backed out. Who have you got who's young, who's free, who will come and sing a song from Phantom? And Seth said, "Hey, this guy David Foster called." I'm going, okay. I didn't know who he was at that point because I'd never read the liner notes.
How old were you then?
16.
Whoa.
And he said, "I'm going to have a few of my students send him tapes, and who knows, maybe he'll pick yours." And he did. He picked my tape, and I went and I sang at that thing. And that's how I met him. It was a couple of years after that we actually started working together.
They pretty much met on stage.
Pretty much. We met in the rehearsal room.
Wow.
When for that event, and being a real like music geek and like spending all my time in school in the band room and like, reading Keyboard Magazine and Modern Drummer and all that stuff. All of a sudden I walk into this room and I'm seeing like Michael Thompson's guitar setup and Greg Fillingane's piano setup, and oh my God, that's J.R. Robinson's bass drum, and I'm looking all of it. I didn't know who David Foster was, but I knew who all these musicians were.
That's funny.
And I'm like, I didn't even know it was our rehearsal. I'm like, oh my God, we must be in the wrong rehearsrsal. Like these are some of the best players in the world.
You knew who he was,
and
right?
then David comes in, and he's like, hey guys, hey, how you doing? He's just, and everybody's, giving him a hug and kissing the ring. And he comes over to me and goes, hey man, David Foster, nice to meet you. You were a little flat on that recording, but I think you're going to do a lot better for the live thing. I'm like, thank you. And that was the beginning of what became.
And were you?
I didn't go back and listen to it. I once that cassette got sent to David, I think that was a copy 1 of 1. He probably has it somewhere.
Yeah.
But I made damn sure I wasn't flat for the performance.
Okay. Nice. We wrote a song, We Will Meet Once Again, that you duetted with Andrea Bocelli.
That's right, yeah.
One of the highlights of my career.
Oh, me too.
To see the both of you sing together.
Me too, because it was so full circle.
Yeah.
For me, yeah. Shortly after that concert, David called me and said, hey, I'm at the Grammys, and I wrote a song called The Prayer for Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion, and hey, you were great at that thing. Yeah. Andrea's, stuck in Germany, can't fly here for another day. Yeah. Would you come and sing with Celine until he gets here? And I think I had a birthday. I was like 17 at that point. Mm-hmm. And so, that was an insane moment, because that was the first time I got to stand on a stage that was that lofty. And of course, being a huge fan of Andrea's and Celine being just top of the top to anybody with ears. I just couldn't believe what was happening. She was so sweet. She came out, she was so unassuming. She was in sweats, and she knew that like I was nervous. She knew I was a kid. Yeah. She didn't know when she came in who she'd be singing with. She's like, where's Andrea's not here, so somebody's coming to sing for, okay. And then when I came out, and I was like, hi, she immediately got it. She's like, oh, David's got a kid that he's working with, and this is a really big deal for him. And so she went immediately from I'm rehearsing for me mode to I'm going to help this kid out mode. Wow. And that to me shows just like what a human being she is, because 17-year-old kid who's never recorded anything in his life, I'm a superstar who's about to perform in the Grammys. Yeah. Very easily, I could name probably 99% of all great divas of the music business probably would have been focused on their own thing, ignored me entirely, and then said, hey, thanks for coming. She, took me by the hand, and we walked out front, and she added new choreo for us. And, the late, great Renee and Jalil, her late husband and manager, let my dad film the rehearsal in the audience, which would normally be like a total no-no. Yeah. So they got it. Like, they understood this was a big moment for me, and were so kind. And, so all these years later, to have written this song with you called We Will Meet Once Again, which also in the title is like so full circle.
Right? We will meet once again.
We will meet once again.
Oh my God, yeah, I never thought of that.
All these years later.
That was a funny thing how we wrote this. So we were in New York. Yeah. And coming to New York, I had this melody in my head, and I thought, this sounds so familiar, and I hope it's not someone else's song or so. But then I thought I'd play it to you because I thought it might work with you. And then you loved it, and then we wrote the verses, and we elaborated on that melody in the chorus, made it bigger. Yeah. And then I fly back home, and then my ex-girlfriend from like 30 years ago sends me a song and says, I hear Josh Groban is making a record. Shouldn't we play this to him? And it was this song. And I was like, fuck, we had recorded this song like 25, 28 years ago. Wow. And then remember, I emailed you and said there's another writer involved.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. That's great. Cool. Add it on. Yeah, sure. And then at one point it was a solo, and then we kind of started playing with harmony. Yeah. And, but without any kind of real idea of what it would be. But instantly the fluidity of the melody said, like, this feels like an Italian song. I don't always push myself to sing in foreign languages if it doesn't feel natural. A lot of times the melody that we write will dictate kind of whether it's a song that feels like it's got that English kind of staccato or if it feels like it it could have that kind of Latin language romanticism to it. But this was a song that immediately when I heard that melody, we found that harmony and we said, this is a duet. I think it's an Italian.
And we sang it in La 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 Di Da.
And we did La 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 La, you know, and
it just felt great.
It felt great.
Yeah.
You know?
And was it Diamond who sent it then to Andrea, or you sent it?
Sent it to Andrea, and they agreed, and we never got to record it in the same room. You know, he was in Italy and I was here.
Yeah.
We eventually got to sing it together in Italy.
Where was that? I saw the video. It looks stunning.
Porto Venere, which is on the coast. And,
I love Italy.
We were in front of an ancient castle, you know, and candles everywhere, you know, which is...
It looks stunning.
I don't think Andrea's ever performed on a stage that wasn't some kind of ancient castle with candles.
Yeah.
His budget is really
Not
fantastic.
just 5 candles. No,
exactly. No.
All the candles in town.
Oh my God, the entire thing was lit by ancient candles, which is great. I've usually got a little room in Burbank with some fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
But no, it was great. We got to sing that song together for the first time, and it was on PBS. And I mean, recording it, writing it with you, singing it live, recording it in the studio. There are moments as a recording artist, we've been around, you know, as long as I'm lucky to have been around, where you're able to really sit back and like remember, because it all moves so fast, you know, and you're always like so driven to whatever the next thing is, to sit back and say, and remember that nervous kid holding Celine's hand and eventually meeting Andrea at backstage, and thank goodness he showed up so I didn't have to step in for the broadcast.
Yeah.
And just thinking like any million life doors could have opened or closed from that point to this point.
True.
But the stars continued to align in a way that allowed for us to, all these years later, be in the game together and be, you know, record as, you know, as peers and not as, you know, 17-year-old kid and
if you think about all the moments that led to this point, and if you go back, our parents and then their parents and their parents and their parents, and you go back like I don't know how many million years. Yeah. Just because all of these parents survived and actually had children, we even exist.
I mean,
mankind exists.
There are stories within stories within stories that people just, you know, if you're not there in it, it's why it's so important.
And all of them are almost like almost got hit by a car, but made it. And
there's it is on a razor's edge how little things or large things can affect, you know, thousands of years in the future, just because of the butterfly effect. You know, it's incredible. So, you know, this is why I say there is so much talent out there, and there is so much deserving talent out there. And they say that luck is preparation meets opportunity, and I really agree with that. It wasn't easy. You know, David Foster saw something in me and said, I think he's good enough to be put in a position where if I put him in front of the challenge, I think he'll get through it.
It's more than just preparation, opportunity. I mean, it's talent, it's relentless work, it's work. Delusional conviction that you have a chance, and you keep going. Everyone says no, yes, no, yes.
To be young and to have that delusion is a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I think it's some form of insanity. Maybe if we get diagnosed, there's something wrong, that we still fight for it because we think we belong on stage and our songs belong in the radio. It's crazy.
And as we get older, we have to kind of remind ourselves of that delusion. I think we there's something to that as we get. As we grow up and we understand what disappointment feels like, and we understand what trying and failing feels like, and we understand when we miss how badly that feels, that we kind of develop certain armor that takes away our delusion, you know?
But then also not just take it as failure, but actually take it as an opportunity to learn. And I'm going to come back stronger, do it better, and then next time, maybe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So you're also a big musical buff, right?
Yeah. Well, when David found me, my plan was to go to do theater school.
What are your favorite musical songs? Can you give me a few tastes? I want to hear your voice. Like your top 10 favorite musical hook moments. Just a second of each.
Top 10? That's a lot of songs.
Yeah, just
10 whole. We're gonna go through
not whole songs. No. Just like 5 seconds.
Let me see if I can do. Let's see if I can find
the top 10 of Josh Groban curated best musical moments in American history.
One of my first things that I ever saw when I was a kid was I saw Robert Guillaume, who was the first African American Phantom, which was really, really cool, and I saw him perform at, I believe, the Amundsen Theater here in Los Angeles.
Nice.
And he was just amazing, and that was my first time seeing Phantom. So So yeah, anywhere you go, let me go to, Christine. That's all I ask of you. That's Phantom.
Nice.
Second one. Then it was, of course, like then from like 10 years old to like 13 years old. I watched like Les Mis, right? And I was like big on wanting to be Javert because he was the baritone in the show. Like Valjean is like the lead role, but he was singing like up in the stratosphere, and I knew I had a baritone voice. So he had this song that was stars in their multitudes, scarce to be counted, here in the darkness. And he had this a beautiful song about like questioning everything and wanting to catch Valjean. And so I wanted to do Les Mis. And then
also there's a piano if you feel like playing as well. You're such a great piano player.
Stars
People might not know how good of a piano player you are.
Scarce to be counted, here in the
Yay.
That's a little low for me. But and then I just Sondheim, Sondheim. That was honestly like hearing Sunday in the Park with George when I was, I must have been 10 or 11 when I saw the Mandy Patinkin and Bernadette Peters production of Sunday in the Park with George. Sunday by the blue, purple, yellow, red water. And there's the song "Finishing the Hat," which is so beautiful. You have to finish the hat, mapping out the sky. What you feel like planning a sky takes a little sigh as you look through the window. But to see, it's the only way to see. It was so intelligent, and the lyrics were about an artist who was questioning himself and the world, and always trying to stay current. And the amazing thing about Sondheim's stuff, whether it's Sunday in the Park or something like Sweeney Todd, which I had the chance to do all of last year, is that he took stories that were not your normal stories.
So I totally missed it. I wish I would have been in New York to see you on Sweeney Todd.
That's okay. You had 310 opportunities.
Yeah, I know.
But it's fine, Toby.
Did you do like two shows a day or
Wednesdays and Saturdays?
That's
2
crazy.
shows. It is crazy.
And you had an off day as well?
That delusion came back to me.
I know.
When I said yes to doing Sweeney Todd. But we got through it. The nice thing about 2 show days is you're marinated. Your second show, you're like, I know I've done it already. So now all I have to do is re-trigger all those emotions and re-trigger your voice is already warmed up.
Wow.
So the main thing for a second show on a 2 show day is just don't fuck up what you've done the last 5 hours.
If you have a day with a really, really good audience, is the next day a letdown if it's just an okay audience?
You do that many shows, and you have some nights where, you've got a lot of tourists, they've been
sometimes it's standing ovations and they go crazy, and then the next time they just it was what's wrong?
A matinee.
Yeah.
Although I will say sometimes we'd have like a matinee that was bananas, and you'd have like students, for instance, in the balcony. And they were just losing their absolute minds. And you had people who had never seen Sweeney Todd. And for a 40-plus-year-old musical, you assumed that everybody had seen it. They'd seen at least the movie, and they knew the story. And so all the twists would not be a surprise to them.
Yeah.
We had nights where, when all the twists would happen, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but like, we'd hear like, in the audience, and we go, oh my God, there's somebody new out there. Like, that's great.
That's funny how you can tell it's new.
Great audiences. We took a show that was an operatic, very, very brainy, smart show about a mass murderer who bakes people into meat pies.
Hey.
And we did it with a 30-piece orchestra with Jonathan Tunick's original arrangements. And we did it in a giant, the Luntfontein Theater is an enormous theater, almost 2,000 seats. And we're thinking, are we crazy to think we can get this to a wide audience? Because as much as Sondheim has been a hero to me and to so many other people would be surprised to hear that oftentimes his shows are not profitable because they're so challenging. They're challenging to the performers, and they're challenging to an audience because it's not your typical jukebox, happy-go-lucky.
Did you have an orchestra as well?
Full orchestra.
Wow. And I was going to pay them union fees.
And it was expensive.
Yeah.
Our weekly budget for it was huge, and we still were a massive hit every week, and we had all ages coming, and people were out, cosplaying on stage door. I mean, it was, for somebody who grew up loving that show, to see that we were passing it on to a new generation was the greatest thrill of all time.
I want to talk also about what you're excited about, like the charities you are involved in.
Sure. Yeah, it's those early days before I met David Foster and before I kind of started that chapter of my story, I was, I don't know if this is common in music, but like I'm in a job that requires huge levels of like performance and extroverted energy.
Yeah.
And I could not be more of an introvert at heart. Like
Really?
Yeah.
How does that show?
When I have something I have to do and I've got a spotlight and I've got people who've paid money and I've got a stage to go on, I'm able to flip over to the brain and go out on stage and live in that.
And you're not nervous on stage?
Not anymore. I used to be, and the nerves would really affect me because the brain and the voice are so connected that I would get like just really tight because you lose your breath.
Yeah.
Your mouth gets dry. You're just like, wow. But more and more, I realized that nerves were just a fear of like the unknown. You want to do a good job and you don't know because it hasn't happened yet what's going to happen. And so your nerves play tricks on you to kind of tell you that what you're worst afraid of happening is already happening.
Wow.
When it's not. Once I realized that once I get on stage, the nervousness is off stage because I have no control.
Yeah.
Once I get on stage, you realize that this is the time where you actually have the reins to control your destiny out there.
Wow.
And I started to transfer like how I would get nervous into a focus, into like, okay, now is your chance to breathe, to slow down your brain and to take this place, take this show, take this venue to wherever you want to take it.
Wow, I'm getting goosebumps. This is really profound. I mean, everyone who makes music must be on stage. Listen, this is really smart.
Well, and you almost have to. I'm a big sports fan. I'm wearing you can't say I'm wearing a Dodger hat today. And I think that like when I've talked about performance psychology, I think there's a lot of very similarities with athletics and with sports performance.
Yeah.
And the idea of like finding your flow and like slowing yourself down when everybody's going insane and when the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Is really, really important. So I used to take the insanity that was going on inside and the insanity of an arena and the insanity of like a live television performance and 3, 2, 1, you're on. And I used to take the energy of what that was around me and it would be in me and I'd be here with that energy. And in order to do my best, I realized that what I would look back on as my best afterwards, in order to do that job, I needed to take myself down to a place of like this big. I needed to take it down to a place of like, that it wasn't about not caring. It was about like letting myself flow in a way that all of that other external shit didn't affect me.
Yeah.
And so if you're a people pleaser and you're somebody who cares a whole damn lot, like I did and do, that can feel like, well, I'm not giving enough, or I'm not.
Am I worthy?
That I'm not.
Why
that
am I
I'm
up
not.
here?
Yeah, I'm not. They're going like this, and I'm just up here like this. But it doesn't appear that way. And when I watch guys go up to bat for for baseball teams, and like you see somebody who's lost their swing for like 50 games or whatever it is, and all of a sudden they start to find their swing again.
Yeah.
Every time you talk to an athlete who's found their flow again, they always say that like, oh, I let all the other shit get to me, and I just realized that I just need to take it back to this and be simple.
And come back to why we make music in the first place. Like we love
it's simple.
Listening to ourselves play or like giving people a good feeling, allowing them to cry with us. And
And those emotions come from something very, very simple. Anybody who hits a home run, what did you feel? Oh my God, a grand slam. They weren't expecting to hit it. They were thinking to themselves, just make contact. And then it went out and they went great, and I think that's the way sometimes you got to look at performance musical performance at a high level. Is that you got to trust that the stuff in you is enough, and that the stuff in you got you to where you are. And just keep it simple.
But I asked a question.
Which one?
About your charities. Oh. You got lost in that. That was really valuable, and I'm super happy you did that because that's incredible inspiration for anyone who's got stage fright. This is profound. It's really good.
I found another path along the way to that story, but what I was going to say is that before David Foster, and before I found all that stuff, it was my teachers. It was we were talking about Introverted.
Yes.
So I was a shy kid. My grades weren't great. I was just lost inside myself. And it was my music teachers, my theater teachers when I was in 7th, 8th grade, and everything was terrible. That gave me access to a music room, gave me access to a drum set, a piano, pulled me out from the choir and said, you're going to get a first solo whether you like it or not. And really put things in front of me. And this is why, for me, with arts education, like access is the most important thing, because the lives you can change by simply placing that opportunity or that instrument in front of somebody. You almost don't have to do anything else. And so for me, my foundation is called Find Your Light, and it's all about making sure that any program around the country that offers that access, that offers arts in schools, needs to keep a teacher there, needs to keep a program there, paintbrushes, instruments.
So how is that in practice? How do you interact with these schools? And
So we give grants to hundreds of programs around the country, and we raise millions for those programs so that when they reach out and say, hey, we're on the verge of a budget cut that would keep this program away from students, we want to be able to say yes as often as possible to anything they need to keep those programs afloat. And it isn't rocket science. It's not curing a major disease.
It's like providing instruments, providing teachers.
Yeah, it doesn't cost a lot, which is both the exciting thing and also the frustrating thing.
Yeah, my older daughter was in a public school here, and they cut arts and music, and that's when we pulled her out and said, okay, I guess you have to go to a private school here.
It's the first thing to go, and because there's a stigma around it, that it's just a feel-good thing, which, by the way, on its own is good. You want kids to feel good, you want them to feel good, but the stigma around it is that it's not really necessary to get you a job or to get you ready for college or that, that really you got to focus on STEM. You got to focus on the other subjects. And what we found in conversations that I've had with incredible experts in the field, doctors, I've become really good friends with our Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy. And he especially has really made sure that in his position as Surgeon General has talked about this as a mental health crisis, that we're in an epidemic right now.
Yeah, and music could be one of the things that helps.
Loneliness.
Art could be helping.
100%. And so not only are we finding that arts education helps with grades and with math and with science, all the subjects that they care about, but it also creates better human beings that understand themselves, understand the world around them, empathy, future leaders at a time when we're being told every day by any outlet that will get a hold of us how different we are, how angry we should be, how scared we should be.
That's crazy how angry we should be. You watch the news and you have to be angry, and
it's angry, and it is angry.
There's no good positive news hardly, and
it's all righteous, but for young people growing up, it's deeply confusing, and so to have arts to help them discover what their voice is in the midst of all that chaos is life-saving for them, and also bettering the world.
What are some of the funniest moments of your career?
Oh man. Well, I mean, embarrassing funny.
Okay,
I don't know.
Funny,
I mean, the music business is weird on a good day. And there have been times where I burped on stage once on mic. I fell down
in the middle
stairs.
of a song.
In the middle of a song. Very serious
How was
song.
that? Whoa.
Per te vivrò. And I right in the middle of this very serious Italian kind of aria.
Did that go viral?
This was thankfully before YouTube. So this was one of my earlier shows, and I had, you do enough shows and you start to get lazy about your pre-show routine because you've done so many. And that tour lasted me a year and a half. And so I was eating
Did everybody laugh?
Oh my God. Everybody in my band who had in-ears in, they were cracking up. The first 5 rows definitely heard it. But I had a giant Mountain Dew and a Subway sandwich or something before. Literally, I was thinking, I've done a million of these shows. I know the show backwards and forwards. I'm hungry.
Too confident,
I'm hungry. And if I don't eat something, I'm gonna be hangry out there. So I scarfed this giant soda, and I was just being so dumb. And I was literally I was holding back burps the entire concert. Not long after that, this tour needed to end. 3 shows after that, another serious song, and I had this big staircase on stage, and I was wearing these very smooth suit shoes, and there was a carpet on the stairs, and I was just I fell down, and my butt is hitting every step, and I just hopped back up, and and they laughed, and it was it was fine, but then I started doing things where I was walking through the audience during concerts, and that's a real box of chocolates. You never know what hand is going to grab you where. Oh wow. And so some of the ladies at the shows get a little, they pregame a little bit, and there was a night where I was sitting on the edge of the stage singing a really sweet song, Nothing's Gonna Harm You, Not While I'm Around, from Sweeney Todd, and I felt this hand going up my pant leg, and so I'm both kicking this lady, really boozy lady, like soccer mom with like, 10 like plastic martini glass. She's like quadruple fisting right now. And this hand is going up my pant leg. And I'm just like, no, not while I'm around. No.
And you were mid-song.
Mid-song. She's
really
looking up at me
shut
like,
up.
yes. And I'm like, this is, I'm going to stand. I stood up and I was like, I probably should have gotten a lot angry at her, there's, and then there have been the times where it's like been scripted, where it's like I've been very fortunate to have been able to like hang out with a lot of funny people and like do a lot of comedy. And early in my career, it was really put upon me that I shouldn't do anything that wasn't like the serious singing guy. And then it was, shows like The Office and, people like Jimmy Kimmel and people giving me shows and people giving me opportunities to make guest appearances and Glee did that too. And like Always Sunny in Philadelphia had me on, and Parks and Rec. Like all my favorite comedies have had me on.
I look at your Wikipedia. It's like an endless amount of television you've done. Like
I say yes a lot, but I say yes to all like the best. Like I've been so lucky that all my favorite comedies have had me on, either playing myself or playing a weird version of myself, or like or another character. Like
could you do stand up too?
No, that's a specific glutton for punishment that I think that like I don't think I could handle.
Can you tell a joke?
I mean, I know jokes, but I've read them on Reddit. Like these are not like original.
No, it's such a skill because I've probably heard a few in my life, but I can't remember a single one when it comes to telling one. I think it's a real skill to then say, okay, I know one, and then you actually make somebody laugh.
There are jokes in Germany, right?
Yes, and they're mostly about, I don't know, they're terrible jokes. I don't want to repeat any of those.
When I go to Germany, I always find that like finding my humor in Germany is an interesting thing, because I want to be like clever in interviews when I'm in Germany. Yeah. But it's a very different type of humor.
It is very different.
There are some countries where
the thinkers, the Germans,
very thinky, and
they always analyze and they always criticize, and then they like to tell you exactly what's wrong.
Yes.
In America, nobody would ever say anything negative. In Germany, we want to explain in detail why we didn't like it.
It's a joke, but it feels like harsh criticism. And why am I so offended right now? And then they'll tell me like, no, that's not what he meant. He was being funny. I was like, well, that's a funny way of showing it. And then there are countries where it's like Japan has like silly humor, like we do. England, silly. There are places that I go where it's like my silliness really clicks. But to answer your question, I could never do stand-up comedy. Improv, I love. I love like comedy sports, like where you pick a name out of a hat and you have people with you, and I've done that a few times.
So
I did this thing called Freestyle Love Supreme in New York. I did 5 or 6 of those where you're just making up songs on the spot, and that's
are you writing
fun.
Your own plays too, and shows, TV shows, musicals?
Working on a couple possible TV ideas, which could be really, really fun. We're in a time right now where there's just no rules, and if you are somebody that likes to branch out and do a lot of different things, there's more opportunities for you now, not less. It used to be that if you did more than one thing, people would scratch your head. And
labels would say, no, if you do one thing right, stick to that, and don't, like, you're only this one person.
It's a great time for multi-hyphenates. It's a great time for,
multi-hyphenates. I don't know.
Singer, mime, stand-up comedian, chef. If you can do a few different things, if you can be a Swiss Army knife of things, it's a good time, because there's a lot of bad stuff that happens from social media and all that. But the good thing is that you can really kind of show people all the different things you'd like to do and find your audience your way. And it's actually in that way so much more freeing than it was in the first 10 years of my career.
That's right. I'd love to play a little game that we play sometimes. It's called Guess That Song.
Yeah. Guess that song.
Okay,
Let's do it.
I'm going to play you a melody and only 2 notes, or maybe 3 notes if I'm generous.
Yes,
and you have to guess the song.
I will do my best. I won't know any of these, Toby. I don't listen to music. It's a hard knock life. Seriously?
You're good, yes.
Oh my God, that's
Annie.
awesome.
Amazing.
Starting with a little Annie.
And that's like 2 notes, like 2 different, and incredible.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, let's try another one.
Over the rainbow.
You're a natural.
Way up high.
Yes.
That's great.
Okay. You want another note?
It's almost ABBA.
It is
not
ABBA.
Quite. Is it ABBA?
Yeah, Mamma Mia.
Oh, I think
Here we go again.
I thought it was Mamma Mia and not Mamma Mia, right? Not only did I get it right, but I corrected you.
You got it righter than me.
Time to twist the hat.
I stand corrected.
Got a savant up in here. I was so nervous about this game. Okay. never want to let. Oh no, it's one of mine. Da da da.
It's a massive song.
Is it?
Yeah. It's been inspiring for decades.
Oh my goodness! One more time.
One of the biggest singers ever.
Is it a Celine song?
No, I'll give you one more note.
Okay. I'm stumped on this one.
I do it my way.
Oh, it's the end of a chorus, not a beginning.
But that's the hook, right? Everything else is not really. Which other bit would you play?
Regrets. If you'd gone
a few.
Da, 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 that's the part.
It is such a good song.
Of course, Paul Anka. And Paul Anka, who I got to know very early in my career.
Yeah.
He's like, when he sings that song at events or charities or things like, he switches up the lyrics to match the charity. It's very, very good. That was
it's
good.
So
okay.
good.
Yeah. Classic.
Do you want another one?
Sure.
Let's see.
I'm hitting like 95%. The winner takes it all.
You're so good.
Yeah, that's ABBA.
Exactly.
Two ABBAs. Yeah.
Yes, the winner takes it all.
Excellent.
Very good.
Which I have a song called Gira con me, which was one of the first songs. David Foster and Walter Afanasieff recorded this for me.
Yeah.
And it's girará a cuore mil. Very similar to The Winner Takes It All. Please don't sue us. But yeah. Is that right?
No. Well, I went a different one.
Yeah, okay. Da, 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 da. Is that right?
There's another note coming then.
Okay.
So.
Is it an ABBA song?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been 2 ABBA songs.
Yeah.
Third ABBA song. Da, 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 da. Oh, my friend Dion, who's the biggest ABBA fan of all time, is going to be really mad at me for this. Da, 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 da.
It's fast.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Take a chance on me. No.
Your rhythm though. If you'd gone.
I thought that's what I did.
You're going. Da, 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 da,
all right.
It's all about the rhythm.
We also want to inspire people who want to do what you do. Do you have do's and don'ts, tips for aspiring songwriters?
Yes, I guess I do. Whenever I work with young artists, whether they write songs, whether they just want to perform and interpret, I got a really great piece of advice early on in my career from an amazing legend in theater named Barbara Cook, who, this is kind of an audition piece of advice, but I think it relates to any facet of performing, which is that when she was auditioning and she would sit outside in the hallway, she had what she knew was her true interpretation of her audition. She knew how it hit her. She knew how she wanted to interpret it. She was going to make it uniquely her. Mm-hmm. And then she'd hear through the door somebody else doing a different version. And they'd hear the people behind the table going, oh, that's great. Oh,
yeah.
And she'd go, oh, shit, I'm doing it wrong. That's the way they want it. And so she'd second guess herself and she'd go in and she never got the roles. Mm-hmm. And as soon as she started to block out anything that was in that room and she just did it the way she could do it, she started getting roles because she was the only her. And I would say that in this ever competitive, noisy, chaotic, formulaic business, that the scariest thing is to not follow the thing before you that is the thing that you think everybody wants to hear. Because it's always easier to see something that's happened and want to duplicate that than it is to offer to the world something that hasn't happened yet and what people don't know they want.
Yeah.
And so I would say that at the end of the day, we're all human beings. People have different tastes for genres and for styles of music, but we all have the same goosebumps. We all have the same hearts and souls. And so, if you do something that makes you feel great, that you say to yourself, even if this thing failed, I feel this in my bones. There's going to be a lot of other human beings that are going to feel that too. And to just be you. Don't listen at the door, it's and be collaborative, be a fan. I think that it's also really easy to be isolated into your own thing and not listen. And you stop listening because you got so much vision. Yeah. And I think the other thing that's really helped me out is to listen, to hang out with artists, to listen to things, to be a fan of music before you even make music. And and be nice because you never know you never know.
Yeah, you see everyone again in some different role.
And sometimes they're your boss. You know, you never know who's going to be where and who you might want to collaborate with. And so, you know, even if you're having a hangry day, you know, try and be nice.
So what's on your playlist on your phone? What kind of music do you like to listen to?
Yeah. You know, I love discovering, because you can get really locked into the same old songs that you've loved forever and ever and ever. They say that like you stop listening to new music after a certain like age in your life. And I think there's a certain level of truth to that. But the nice thing about streaming is that you can go on a journey. You know, you can say, this is the kind of artist I like. Yeah. And it will tell you more artists that might be like that. I love one of our great institutions in LA is KCRW. It's so great. I listen to Morning Becomes Eclectic all the time. Even if it's not in the morning, I'll restream it just to like discover new voices, new bands, and new singers. And there are lots of them. So you know, the stuff that I listen to is in every genre, and then I have to find ways, if I'm inspired by it, to somehow make it, you know, feel right for my voice and for what it is that I do, which can be a challenge. But that's the fun part about duets too, is you can have two totally different worlds. I just recorded a duet with an incredible soulful country duo called the War and Treaty. And we just recorded a song together, and, you know, we're in very different kind of universes vocally, but we just like sang our faces off together, and it worked.
What are your dream collaborations that haven't happened yet?
Wow. You know, I would love to. I've been a fan of Bjork since I was a kid.
Same.
And she was like the first person for me that showed me what it meant to be able to put a lot of ideas in a pot.
And truly original. And
like one
of a kind.
Ideas.
Absolutely one of a kind.
Talk about like singing technique. I don't think this is, I mean, I could be wrong, and no disrespect to Bjork, but she didn't seem like the kind of person who was like thinking too much about technique. She was, to me, when I heard her sing, it was wild. It was like guttural. It was something that...
Unhinged. And you hear the record, and then you see her live. I saw her live several times with the Sugar Cubes and then alone.
Yeah, same. I saw her.
It was mind-blowing. So much better than on the record.
Really amazing. And so I learned a lot from listening to her about, you know, listening to like people like her and Peter Gabriel and Annie Lennox. And, you know, when I was a kid, like those were artists that I listened to kind of, when I was doing all the technical training, to kind of remember what it should feel like to just sing wildly and from the heart, because there's a lot you learn, and then you have to listen to some people about what you want to unlearn, you know, after you get all that technique. And so any one of them I would love to
What's kind of the song you wish you had written?
Oh God, well, I haven't written very many, so basically all of them. Any hit I wish I would have written. You know, it's a really, really good question. I wish I'd written "You Raise Me Up." That would be. I would have come here on my spaceship if I'd written "You Raise Me Up." Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many songs that I love. "Smile though your heart is aching." That's a song that I think is probably one of my favorite.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Favorite songs
it's so
of all
emotional.
time. And it's just such a lovely, simple melody, and it's a song about one of my favorite subjects, which is like, you know, the melancholy of like putting on a good face, you know?
Yeah.
And so, I'm going to say that one.
So while we were preparing for this, we stumbled on a rumor.
Oh, yeah?
Of the one that got away from Katy Perry. We were like, really? Is that true?
She said it. I don't think it's a rumor if she said it. I was very surprised by it. I was very touched by it, I guess. It's a very sweet thing, and we're still friends, you know, and you never know, you know, when you cross paths with people in your life, you know, what inspires little nucleuses. I mean, obviously, like something like that, there's so much artistic liberty in songs. We've written songs about people in my life, relationships. You tap into things that sparked an emotion for you, and then the details of the lyric don't necessarily always have to be exactly about that person or that thing. You know, maybe the sentiment of the song perhaps was an inspiration to her, and if that's true, then I'm deeply touched by that, and
that's good.
It's very sweet. But I also, you know, didn't drive a Mustang, and didn't like, have a tattoo. So, you know, I think that's the beauty of writing songs. But
it's a compliment. I mean, that song's a compliment to you.
And by the way, not for nothing, it's like one of my favorite songs of hers. Like it's a really gorgeous song. So, you know, I've known Katie a long time. We've been friends for a really long time, and she's great. So, it's it's a wild thing how you get inspired.
What's like your perfect like date night out?
Probably more date. I'm as an introvert, probably like more in than out. Probably, but I don't know. Let's see. Maybe anything. Anytime you can go see comedy, I feel like anytime like going to something like the Groundlings or UCB Theater.
Is that in LA?
That's in LA. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know these.
Absolutely.
I should go.
That's a great night out. Oh, I found a great new restaurant in the Valley called Sushi Note.
Love that one.
You know Sushi Note?
Omakase.
The Omakase, if you like sushi, that's a great date night out.
Memorable. Like it's the
and
one
if
of
you
the
like
few
wine,
where you have a sushi chef for you, like for an hour and a half, and he just serves you one thing, and then do you like it? Then the next one, and then the next, and it goes on and on and on.
It does. And if you like wine, their whole thing is that they pair it with great wines. That like they, if, like they say, like, well, sushi's always sake and beer. We want to prove you wrong on that. Like we can pair a Burgundy with Toro, or we can.
Yeah. On that sushi note, if you compare LA a little bit with New York, because you live in both cities, and you probably know a lot of amazing little spots that most people of us might not know. Yeah. Sushi Note's one that I would recommend. That's incredible.
I would recommend Sushi Note. It's a small restaurant, so I might regret recommending it.
Absolutely. Make a reservation.
Make a reservation. There's the old school Matsuhisa, in Beverly Hills, which is so awesome. I could talk about sushi for the next 30 minutes.
Just a few. It doesn't have to be sushi, but maybe your few favorites in New York and in LA.
Yeah. In New York, there's a great, I would say an amazing date spot in New York is called Grand Banks. It's only open in the warmer months, but it's like a sailboat on the Hudson that's docked. It's in like Tribeca area. And they play like reggae music, and there's like cool cocktails and like oysters, and you basically just step onto the boat and you can see the Statue of Liberty and the sunsets, and it's just like, that is to me like one of the great gems of New York is Grand Banks.
There's also this Italian restaurant, and in front of that it is a meadow, and then you see the Statue of Liberty downtown. What's it called?
Is it the Riverbank Cafe?
No, it's in Italian. They're really, really good food, great pasta.
Well, Italian food in New York.
That was one of my favorites when I lived there.
Find another, really.
I always took the bicycle down, and
cool.
It was like a thing we had.
Yeah, there is great Italian food in New York.
Yeah, I love New York.
No shortage. I do too. I'm very happy to have both. And I would say there's equally great sushi in both.
It's funny when you live in New York. I've lived 9 years in New York, and I was always on the bicycle.
Yeah.
Pretty much knew every street.
Yeah.
And then you watch movies after you've lived there for 9 years. You kind of know every location. Like it's always the same location.
And it's a grid.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like in LA where it's just like you need GPS to get anywhere.
Yeah.
In New York, you just say, okay, well, this street, I'm going to maybe to the corner of this street and this street, and I kind of know there's the Freedom Tower. I can find you. Mm-hmm. But I love New York too.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, for being on my podcast.
It's been my absolute pleasure.
It's such an honor.
Oh, the honor is always mine. Anytime I get to be in this room with you for anything, it's a great privilege. You're absolutely one of my favorite humans on the planet, one of the great writers and musicians this business has ever known.
Thank you.
And to sing your work is a gift. So thank you so much for all you've brought to my life and to the world.
Thank you so much.
Dankeschön.
If you like this episode, please give us a review. And if you give us a 5-star review, we would be super happy. And then also please like and subscribe. There will be more. Bye.